What's up guys, I'm Tony Wodarck. I'm a photographer out of Southern California, and today I'm gonna help you figure out what film camera to buy. Okay, so first up, I think you have to understand there's two major types of cameras right out of the gate. There's medium format and there's 35mm. So medium format are these big clunker cameras, and then 35mm are these smaller cameras like this. And the difference are the type of film that they take. So a 35mm camera takes this 35mm film. You've probably seen this before. This is your standard film. You get 24 to 36 exposures depending on what type of roll you buy. And then this 120 film comes on the spool and it's much bigger, and they're about similar in cost, but this one you'll get about 8 to 16 frames depending on what camera you're using. So 24 and 36 versus 8 and 16. So you're gonna get a lot less photos with medium format. So if you're just getting started with film, I'd recommend going with 35mm just to get comfortable shooting film and learning how film works compared to maybe digital that you're familiar with. Okay, when I talk about the difference in negative size, this is what I mean. You can see one photo, that's 6 by 4.5, 645, and that's a 35mm negative. So you can see those next to each other. A 645 negative is over 2.5 times bigger than a 35mm negative. So you're gonna get a lot more quality, just a beautiful image with medium format. If you shoot a DSLR or you shoot a mirrorless camera, the sensor size, a full frame sensor, this is the Canon 5D Mark III, the sensor at the back of the camera is the same size as a 35mm negative. So the quality difference, you're not gonna see much difference. You're only gonna see difference in how film treats light versus a DSLR. So I'm not trying to talk you out of a 35mm camera. I just want you to understand the differences between medium format and 35mm. Okay, so I'm gonna recommend 35mm for you guys, that's where we're gonna go from here on out. Medium format is probably a whole nother topic that we can get into later. Okay, so next up, with 35mm, you have a couple simple choices in my opinion. One is an SLR. So what that means is an SLR is similar to a DSLR. So if you shoot a Canon 5D Mark III or Mark IV or an EOS R or something along those lines, you're familiar with what you see through the viewfinder is what the lens is seeing, and that's what the photo is gonna be. So as you focus your lens, you're seeing the focus in your viewfinder and you're gonna get a photo of that. The only difference is with film, the mirror pops up and it exposes film versus a digital sensor. This is probably the most common type of cameras. This is a Canon AE-1. This is what I started with. You can get one of these for like 200 bucks, and I have links to all these below. These are a little bit more expensive because they've grown in popularity, but they're well worth it. I mean, this one is over 40 years old. I've never done anything to it and it works perfectly. And so I would definitely recommend a Canon AE-1. Other similar cameras, Minolta makes one, Nikon makes one, Pentax. Every major camera brand made a SLR camera. So yeah, I would definitely recommend one of those. You just load the film in the back here and you're ready to go. This video is part of a many-part series, and so we're gonna get into all the nuts and bolts of how to shoot film, but I think the first step in shooting film is figuring out what camera you want. So SLR is what I would recommend. Some other options. This is the Canon EOS III. This is more of a digital style body where it's got a digital LED screen on the top or LCD screen, and it takes EF lenses. So if you're like me and you shoot Canon, you can take your Canon, this is the 85 1.4L lens, and connect it to this body, and the autofocus works. It auto winds to the next frame, and when you're done shooting, it auto rewinds. So this is more of a digital, like automated type of camera. And so if you have really good Canon glass, I would recommend grabbing one of these at some point. Some good options for this are the Canon EOS III and the Canon 1N and the Canon 1V. They're all different prices and different options. I like the Canon EOS 3, but those are all great options. Last up would be a rangefinder. So that camera, again, was an SLR. This is a rangefinder. So what a rangefinder is, it's a little bit smaller typically than an SLR. The lenses are a little bit smaller typically, so that's a benefit. But what you do is when you look through this viewfinder right here, you're looking out right there. You're not actually looking through the lens. So it's called a rangefinder, and so what you're looking through is frame lines of what you want in focus, and then as you focus the lens, there's a little patch in the center that you line up, and that's how you get your focus, and it's finding the range of what is gonna be in focus, and you're taking the photo. So I love shooting with rangefinders. I've actually gotten better at focusing with these than an SLR, which is weird, but I think some people just get more comfortable with these. So it's not to say rangefinders are bad or better or worse, it's just a different focusing system. So if you already shoot DSLRs and you're comfortable with looking through the lens and focusing that way, I would recommend maybe going with the SLR. If you want something compact and want to get into this world, you can check out the rangefinders for sure. I'm gonna recommend SLR for you. Okay, now where to buy them. I put links below. You can find them on Amazon, you can find them on eBay, you can find them on the internet in most places. My recommendations for how to buy your camera would be buy from somewhere reputable. Buy from somewhere that will let you return the camera if it doesn't work. Make sure in the description it says it works. So on eBay, some people are like, hasn't been tested, don't know if it works or not. Don't make that your first film camera, because if it doesn't work, you're gonna be discouraged, and I want you to really enjoy your first roll of shooting, not get discouraged right out of the gate. So I would spend a little bit extra to find a camera that you know works. KEH is a great one for used film cameras. eBay, when they offer refunds or you're purchasing from a camera shop operating on eBay, are great recommendations. Facebook, you can find them. But before you even buy one, I would recommend talking to your family and seeing if they have one in their closet somewhere. Ask your mom and dad, your aunt and uncle, whoever it is, if they have a film camera, and chances are they have something like this sitting in their closet somewhere or in their attic. My dad had this camera from the 80s and he let me borrow it, and I've never given it to him back, and I still use this camera 40 years after he bought it and 28 years after he gave it to me. So the best camera is a free camera, but you also want to make sure it works. So here are some tips on how to test a camera when you get it. You're not gonna fully know if it works until you put film into it and shoot it and develop it and then get the results back. But there's a couple things you can just clearly see out of the gates are working or not working. Chances are it's gonna need a new battery. So research what camera you're buying and research what type of battery it takes, and buy a battery at the same time. Then when you get it, put the new battery in, and I like to go to 1/1000th or whatever the fastest shutter is. Wind it. It's already wound, and then fire it. Did it sound fast? I don't know what 1/1000th of a second sounds like, but I know it's fast. So that sounds pretty fast to me. And then I go down to a slow, like a 1 second or 2 second, and that sounded like a second to me. So I at least know the shutter's working in terms of timing. Then another thing you can do is open it up. And so you saw, maybe I was blocking it. This is 1 second. There's the shutter right there. So you know it's firing. So at the very least, when you get the camera, you know the shutter's opening and closing and working somewhat close to the right time. It could be timing a little bit off, but at some point it's gonna work. That shutter's opening, it's exposing the film, and you're gonna get your photo. The only real thing that's gonna be wrong with the camera, if that is working, is what's called light leaks. So if this isn't properly closing all the way, there's supposed to be foam inserts sometimes in this area. Mine probably needs new foam. but there could be foam around here, and if that's deteriorated or gotten old, you might need new foam inserts. And the only way you're really gonna see that is when you develop the film, is if you see just kind of like streaks of light all over your film, which it looks pretty cool, but you obviously wanna get that fixed. But that's how I kind of test a camera when I get one, making sure the focus works, making sure you're able to change the apertures. So on a lot of these old film cameras, you're changing the aperture right here. It's not just like a button on the back or whatever you might be used to. So you're actually changing the aperture, and then sometimes you're not able to see that you're changing the aperture until you actually take the photo. So I'll go to like f22, wind it, and you can look in and see if the aperture blades are closing, depending on what you're doing. So those are little things that I test for on a camera when I'm looking at it. You wanna look for look through the lens and see if it's cloudy or fungus. Those are kind of things that you're gonna deal with an old camera. Look through the viewfinder and see if it's clear. Just, you know, the standard once over that you give a new camera that you're looking at. But with film, that's kind of what I'm testing is the shutter working? Is it winding properly? That kind of stuff. So that's it. Ask your friends and family if they have a camera. Try to find one for free. That's gonna be the best one. Give it a once over, see if it looks like it's working properly. Grab a roll of film and give it a go. This is the first episode of multiple series video that I'm gonna be teaching you how to learn film. Back a year ago when I started this YouTube channel, I made an entire video called How to Shoot Film. It's a 20-minute version of this more extended version that I'm gonna be doing. I started this YouTube channel to share my love for film, and that video has done really well. It's been my most popular video to date. And so I just really wanted to expand upon that video and just really go in depth on every part of the process around shooting film. So this was how to find your film camera. Next, we're gonna talk about finding the right film for the style that you want. We're gonna talk about how to meter. We're gonna talk about how to take film photos, how do you work with the lab, when you get your results back, how to identify mistakes or success, and all of the good stuff that goes into shooting film. So make sure you subscribe, drop a comment below. At the end of this entire series, I'm gonna do a giant Q&A. So if you have in-depth questions, I can answer it then. If you have shorter questions, I can just hit you back in the comments below. So thank you so much for watching, subscribe.